That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, let's go through. Let's dive into every single running back matchup that we have for Week 15. Going to be important to do this because we got a lot of players on the COVID list. We got a lot of things happening. There will probably be more players added on the COVID list by the time, this video is even edited and out to y'all. So if I'm going through and telling you to go through and jam in Nick Chubb, then all of a sudden Nick Chubb's not playing, of course, understand why. But before we get into anything, we have to give away some Fantasy Flock Network hats. Of course, thank y'all so much for being a part of the flock and supporting the channel. The winners for this video are going to be Jordan and Ethan. Every time y'all go down there, drop a like on the video, leave a comment, y'all get entered in to win a free Fantasy Flock Network hat. Of course, thank y'all so much for that. And also, we have, a massive announcement here. Underdog Fantasy has agreed to fly someone down to the flock meetup that we are going to be hosting in January. So, of course, that is very exciting. I can't give you all the date of the flock meetup just yet, but that is going to be hosted in Tampa, Florida. Y'all better be coming if you live in Florida. And also, if you go sign up for Underdog Fantasy, well, you'll see a lot of player props in this video at the same time. Over there on Underdog Fantasy, you can get into 2022 drafts. You can get into weekly drafts just for right now. You can get into an NFL playoff draft, and you use promo code FLOCK. They'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. And if we can hit 10,000 signups total by the end of the season, Underdog Fantasy will decide to fly down 4 more people for that flock meetup, regardless where you are, paying for flight, paying for hotel, paying for food, paying for drinks, whatever the hell it is. Come down to that flock meetup, hang out with me all weekend. That should be it. Thank you all so much for being here, and let's dive into it. And let's start it off with that Thursday night game. Got the Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers. And of course, a lot of people are going to be watching this on Friday, Saturday, so I can't speak too much on this, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire, play him, put him in the starting lineup. Not worried about it at all. Great matchup against the Los Angeles Chargers. Yes, he wasn't a bell cow running back this past week. That game was just completely out of hand against the Las Vegas Raiders. Not much you can really do about that. Here the Kansas City Chiefs are 3-point favorites against the Los Angeles Chargers. Will be played at SoFi Stadium, so should be a competitive game. Also, we know that the Los Angeles Chargers are a run funnel defense. If it's going to be a more competitive game, I'd imagine that Clyde Edwards-Helaire splits this backfield with Darrell Williams rather than giving many other touches to really any other running back. And in the case of the Los Angeles Chargers, looks like you should have Austin Eckler as a running back that will be good to go. So not too concerned about that, obviously. You go through play Austin Eckler. Even if Eckler was going to see a smaller workload, he's still a top 3 running back in fantasy right now. So I don't necessarily think that you could go anywhere. And now going to our next game, we got the Las Vegas Raiders and the Cleveland Browns. Well, right now, the Raiders are going to be favorited in this game by 1 point. So it's essentially a pick'em game going to be played in Cleveland. Obviously, you just got COVID ravaging the Cleveland Browns right now. No Baker Mayfield. More players going to be out as well. Don't know for the moment. But also, remember, Kareem Hunt is going to be out this week with his own ankle injury. So when we went through and when we made those running back rankings, we had Nick Chubb at the very top of that list. I may be a little bit concerned about this team if they can't move the ball down the field, but I think Nick Chubb gets 25 plus touches here easily. Nick Chubb has to be someone. You can play Nick Chubb as a running back 1 for your fantasy football playoff first game this week. And in the case of the Las Vegas Raiders, Jacobs has just completely changed the role that he has here. I think with Josh Jacobs, you are now essentially viewing him as a 3-down running back, where this past week, yes, you get some other players getting some miscellaneous touches out of the backfield, and he only gets 9 carries. But as we said, it's just a game you can throw out the window against the Kansas City Chiefs. That wasn't even a football game. But here, Jacobs, yet again, 6 targets. 6 targets there. The previous 2 weeks, he had a total of 35 carries, and also he had a total of 13 targets in those games. So if Jacobs now is a running back that's averaging 5-6 targets a game, and he can get up to also, say, 16, 17 carries, that's going to be fantastic. It looks like Josh Jacobs is that bell cow running back. Now, the issue is tougher matchup against the Cleveland Browns. I still think you start Josh Jacobs. I am a little bit concerned that this offense will not have Darren Waller. This offense will not have Henry Ruggs. So they are going to have a hard time moving the ball down the field. But maybe you just make the argument that means more production for Josh Jacobs. And now our next game will be the New England Patriots going over to Indianapolis to play the Indianapolis Colts. And here, obviously, play Jonathan Taylor. Now, yes, this New England Patriots defense is a very, very good one, but I am not sure if you've heard of this by now. And of course, this is why you're subscribed to the channel. This is why, all of us are in the playoffs, because I can hit you with some just hard analysis like this. Jonathan Taylor's a good running back. Jonathan Taylor looks like this is a guy that you may play regardless of the matchup. Just speculating here, but I think he's pretty good. Let's play Jonathan Taylor against the Patriots. And then with Damian Harris, the situation is you're not playing Harris or Ramondre Stevenson if Damian Harris is active. Now, Damian Harris, of course, had that hamstring strain week 13 against the Bills, but he was able to go through. He was able to get the entire bye week to rest up. And not only does he get the bye week to rest up, but he's also practicing on Tuesday already. So I'd imagine that Damian Harris is going to be playing this game. And if Harris plays, probably going to be benching both Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris. Now our next game is going to be the Buffalo Bills, the Carolina Panthers, where the Bills are 11-point favorites here. I honestly don't think you can start a single running back in this game. With Devin Singletary, Matt Breida, Zach Moss, it's just bouncing back and forth every game. Maybe your bet would be on Devin Singletary, but if you're a playoff team, regardless of what happens to your team with COVID, you can't go to Devin Singletary. And in the case of the Carolina Panthers, Chuba Hubbard was the running back that I wanted over Amir Abdullah this past week, but we were telling most people to bench Chuba Hubbard, just given the fact that Amir Abdullah would have a role, even if we were expecting Hubbard to lead the backfield in touches. Well, Amir Abdullah had a larger role than I was expecting. He actually led the team in snaps, if I'm remembering correctly. So I actually think that in a very tough matchup as well, you can't play either Chuba Hubbard or Amir Abdullah. And now going over to the Jets versus the Dolphins, fire up Myles Gaskin. Gaskin got put on the COVID list a week ago, but he had the bye week to go through. He had the bye week to get off that list, so he should be completely fine this week. He had the bye week anyway, so it's not a big deal. Obviously, it's a great matchup against the Jets. Right now, the Miami Dolphins are 10-point favorites in this contest, so it looks like they may be able to lean on the run a little bit. Of course, you're going to have to monitor this to make sure that, Myles Gaskin is good to go. But at the time of this recording, by the time this video comes out, it'll be a full 6 days since he was placed on the COVID list. So I'd imagine that Gaskin will be good to go in a really good matchup. If he's not, I don't want to play any of the backups. I know Salvin Ahmad's also on the COVID list. I know some people are saying, do we go Duke Johnson? Do we go Philip Lindsay? How about we don't go with any of them if it's not going to be Myles Gaskin, because I wouldn't feel comfortable about the workload. And then going over to New York, we got news today. Carter is being activated, and Michael Carter, who I thought was going to be just shut down for the season, is going to be playing. Michael Carter, I think he's a low-end running back too now. I think this is someone that you can get excited about, given the fact that with Michael Carter, this is a running back that earlier this year, he had a game with 14 targets. So if he has that kind of just upside in the receiving game in this backfield, even if they're supposed to be trailing the majority of the time, obviously this Jets team is horrendous as well. I still think you could at least consider playing Michael Carter. Now, our next game is going to be the Washington football team and the Philadelphia Eagles. I am going to be lowering down my expectations drastically here with Antonio Gibson. And the reason for that is with the assumption that you are going to be getting back J.D. McKissic. And if J.D. McKissic is to come back, what are we really supposed to do? If J.D. McKissic's going to be coming back, I think that you're probably having to go through and just assume that Antonio Gibson doesn't have the role in the receiving game, but this is something you have to continue to monitor because J.D. McKissic did not practice on Wednesday with that concussion. So maybe you don't have McKissic. But assuming that J.D. McKissic does come back, not only does that happen, but at the same time, you get no Terry McLaurin. I would say that if you get no Terry McLaurin in this offense, good luck moving the ball down the field if you're a Washington. Right now, the Philadelphia Eagles are 7-point favorites. And if you're looking at the Washington football team, usually they're a respectable line in Vegas, where now they are actually the 21st team with their implied team total. They're only supposed to score about 18.5 points. That's right in line with what you have with guys like, the Atlanta Falcons, the New Orleans Saints, and the Houston Texans. So I would be very concerned about this Washington football offense. But if J.D. McKissic does not play, you go through, you jam in Antonio Gibson. And in the case of Philadelphia, I honestly would not feel that comfortable playing anybody here either. Obviously, they're supposed to win this game, so maybe you want to tell yourself, okay, well, they're going to go through and they're going to run the ball in the second half. But Miles Sanders listed good to go, and it's a tough matchup against Washington. And if Miles Sanders isn't 100% healthy from this ankle, maybe he's just healthy enough to play, they were going through and having a committee backfield when Miles Sanders was healthy. So they had a committee backfield while Miles Sanders was healthy. If Miles Sanders is banged up a little bit here, there's no way in hell they just give Miles Sanders every touch out of this backfield. Now, our next game, we got the Arizona Cardinals and the Detroit Lions, where James Conner is officially listed as a day-to-day with that injury. I mean, if I was Arizona, I would be telling James Conner, hey, man, you've done a hell of a job for us. You've carried this workload with Chase Edmonds hurt. Let's just give you a week off. Take an extra bye week here. We're playing the Detroit Lions. We're favored by 14 points. There's no reason to push anything. But knowing that James Conner is a man, knowing that James Conner is rocking that mullet, you know he's going to try to go out there. And in this game where the Arizona Cardinals should just be at the very top of the league with their implied team total, I mean, right now they are the number one team in the NFL with their implied team total here against the Detroit Lions. And with this spread being so large, I would imagine that they look to just lean on the run. So if James Conner's active, you play James Conner. If James Conner's active and Chase Edmonds is active, you play James Conner, but you drastically lower your expectations. He will no longer be a top 10 running back for us. Instead, he would be that high-end running back 2, just based on a good matchup. Tougher matchups will even lower him further than that because Chase Edmonds should have the role in the receiving game, but the role in the receiving game isn't going to matter too much in a game where they can just run the ball over and over again against the Lions. Now, if James Conner were to miss, Chase Edmonds will be a top 10 running back for me this week, simply because he will be playing every single snap in one of the most productive offenses in the NFL. But if James Conner plays, you can't play Chase Edmonds. Now, going over to that other offense, you got the Detroit Lions. Right now, looking like DeAndre Swift may play, and obviously it's a tough matchup, but as we've discussed time and time again, a running back like DeAndre Swift, you're not starting him based on the matchup. You're not starting him based on the running back's upside to get touchdowns. Instead, you're starting him based on the idea that, hell, this is someone that can go out there, he can draw us 8 targets in this game. If he can come away with 6 receptions, 65 receiving yards, I mean, you only have upside from a touchdown for there. So yeah, you will start DeAndre Swift if he is good to go. Now, it looks like not practicing on Wednesday, so this will be something you have to continue to monitor as the week goes on. You know, we'll be live streaming on Sunday morning. We'll be live streaming on Saturday. We'll be live streaming a ton, so just make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Now, our next game, we got the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants, where it looks like Tony Pollard is going to play. And if Tony Pollard plays, you have to be very scared about Ezekiel Elliott. Ezekiel Elliott is a low-end running back 2 for us this week. I still prefer Zeke over Tony Pollard based on the workloads that these 2 running backs should see. But Ezekiel Elliott just doesn't look like himself with this knee injury. I mean, he's looked straight up bad. I mean, whether you want to blame it on Zeke, whether you want to blame it on the workload he's had, whether you want to blame it on the injury, it doesn't matter. He's not dynamic. He's not electric at the moment. Now, it is a good matchup against the Giants, however, and the Dallas Cowboys are 10.5-point favorites here. So they should be able to effectively move the ball down the field. They should be able to look to lean on the run a little bit more in the second half. I would be a little worried about the Tony Pollard workload because I don't know if you heard this, Corey Clement had more carries than Ezekiel Elliott this past week. And in the case of the Giants, Saquon Barkley is also going to be a running back 2 for me this week as well. I don't think we can call Saquon Barkley even a low-end running back 1, considering the fact that, I mean, Devontae Booker had a very large workload this past week. And reports coming out of New York right now are making it sound like Jake Fromm may be the starting quarterback. And if Jake Fromm is the starting quarterback here, I think you have to be very worried. I mean, I don't want to act like it's that much worse than Mike Glennon. Obviously, they're both very bad quarterbacks, but this is going to be an offense that is one of the worst offenses in the NFL. I mean, right now, Vegas only has them scoring more points than the Jets and the Carolina Panthers this week. I mean, they have the Detroit Lions with more projected points scored than what they have with the New York Giants. Now, our next game is going to be the Tennessee Titans and the Pittsburgh Steelers, where with Tennessee here, I would honestly go through and probably just look to bench everyone. As we said a week ago, when you had Jeremy McNichols coming back into this offense, you're expecting this to be a running back backfield that is split into thirds among Jeremy McNichols, Dontrell Hilliard, and Donta Foreman. Now, that's exactly what happened. And if you're splitting that backfield into thirds with guys that are fringe waiver wire players at best, can't start a single option there, not going to spend too much time on this. I mean, you can make an argument, oh, is the Titans matchup good? Is it bad? It doesn't really matter. Najee Harris going to get every touch out of the backfield. You go through, you play Najee Harris. Now, our next matchup will be the Houston Texans and the Jacksonville Jaguars, where I was surprised to see that the Jags were favored by 3 points when this opened up. When this line opened up, the Jags were favored by 3, and I sat there and I went, oh, I thought this would be like an even game. I thought this would be maybe a 1 to 2 point spread. And that shows you how little I know, because money got bet on Jacksonville Jaguars -3, and now that line's moved to -4 on a bunch of sports books. So Jacksonville should be leading the majority of this game. At least that's the presumption. If not, at the minimum, it's going to be a competitive contest. For that reason, I'd imagine that we're going to go through. You're most likely going to be playing James Robinson. I mean, right now, the Jaguars, according to Las Vegas, and let me repeat myself for the millionth time, Las Vegas knows more than you. They know more than me, and that's all that matters. And they right now have the Jacksonville Jaguars for more points scored this week than Cincinnati, than Pittsburgh, than Baltimore, than Washington, I mean, Atlanta, New Orleans, I think we probably have to play Robinson because this past week he did see the full workload. It's not like you had Carlos Hyde with a large one there. So if this is going to be a better offense, you probably have to go through, play James Robinson. And in the case of Houston, I don't care what's going on. You're not playing the Houston Texans. I don't care if you have... Actually, let me walk my stance back. Under one circumstance, you can play them. If you have no David Johnson, and at the same time, you have no Rex Burkhead. If they are both out, and the only other running back in the backfield is Royce Freeman, given the matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars, where the Texans right now, they're supposed to score more points than the Lions, the Giants, the Panthers, the Jets. If you have literally nobody else, and the only guy standing is Royce Freeman, there I would consider Royce Freeman a low-end running back too. But of course, that's a big what if. And now our next game will be the Cincinnati Bengals and the Denver Broncos. You play Mixon. I am slightly concerned, and I love how everybody was so mad at us for going through speaking poorly on Mixon at the beginning of the week. Y'all know I love Mixon. I mean, Mixon is one of my most drafted players in 2021. Y'all know at the same time, this was a running back I was ranking in the top 3 last week. I come out here and saying that I'm lowering him down with my expectations. I were quote unquote panicking with Joe Mixon. Everybody's rolling their eyes, going to Mason, you idiot. Mason, you fool. It was a bad game. Come on. Samaje Perine came out, and Samaje Perine showed us that he may be having a receiving down role here. So I think with Joe Mixon, he's no longer going to be that top 3 running back for us. He instead will be a low-end running back 1 if he's just not going to see the workload where he's getting 30-plus touches on a week-to-week basis. Also should be a tough matchup here against the Denver Broncos. And with Denver, I mean, I know most people are really going to want to go through and play Javonte Williams. I get it. Javonte looks fantastic. Y'all know, I mean, Javonte Williams, another running back we've been very excited about. But with the Melvin Gordon workload this past week, even though Javonte Williams drops over 20 fantasy points, Melvin Gordon had so many touches that I'm not going to be willing to bet that Denver just goes out there and scores 35 points against the Cincinnati Bengals here. I think it will be a little bit harder for Javonte Williams to find that running back 1 production. I have him as a low end running back 2. I'm going to be telling a lot of people to bench Javonte Williams, as much as I hate saying that. And now our next game, we got the Atlanta Falcons and the San Francisco 49ers. With San Francisco, I guess you can't start a single running back in this backfield not named Elijah Mitchell. With Elijah Mitchell, we don't even know if it's going to be someone playing. He did not practice on Wednesday. I don't know if it was the concussion. I don't know if it was the knee injury. This will be something that we have to continue to go through and monitor. And in the side of the Atlanta Falcons, you're probably going to go through. You're probably just going to play Cordell Patterson. I mean, with Mike Davis, definitely, he's been a thorn in the side of everybody who has Cordell Patterson. And honestly, the reason I'm a little bit more upset with this Mike Davis production is based on all these best ball teams that we have on Underdog Fantasy getting into those playoff tournaments where there's some serious life-changing money at the top. I want everybody who drafted Mike Davis this season to feel the pain for doing so whenever we had like 200-plus teams, and I think we took Mike Davis once, and that was because he fell 3 rounds past his ADP. Now, let's go to our next game. Let's go over to the Green Bay Packers, the Baltimore Ravens. I do not want to start any of the running backs for Baltimore here because I think you have to drastically lower your expectations for the Baltimore Ravens this week. Even if Lamar Jackson plays, I would question a little bit his mobility. And obviously, that's the number one thing that Lamar Jackson brings to this offense. You do have the Packers favored by 5 points here. I'm also going to be trying to avoid both Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. I thought that Aaron Jones would have been a player that we could go through and continue to start if he was going to split this backfield 50-50 with A.J. Dillon, because we've already discussed Aaron Jones would be the running back with the touches in the red zone, with the touchdown upside, as well as the role in the receiving game. Where this past week, A.J. Dillon had 15 carries compared to Aaron Jones at 5. This is about the toughest run defense that you can go up against in the Baltimore Ravens. I would play Aaron Jones over A.J. Dillon. They are neck and neck for me, however, and I think that we would probably try to avoid both of them in this game. Now, our next matchup, we got the Seattle Seahawks going over and playing the Los Angeles Rams. Very surprised to see that the Rams are only 4.5-point favorites here. And whoever the starting running back is for the Los Angeles Rams, whether it's Darrell Henderson, who we're expecting it to be, you're probably going to go through, play Darrell Henderson as a mid-running back too. Sony Michel's been great, but at the end of the day, I mean, we've seen Sony Michel be good before. Like Sony Michel was very strong earlier at the beginning of this season in the spot start for Darrell Henderson against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they just went right back to Darrell Henderson the second he came back into this offense. And then in the case of the Seattle Seahawks, Rashad Penny's a low-end running back too. Y'all know I love me some Rashad Penny. My worry is that they just go through and maybe give some touches to DJ Dallas, give some touches to Travis Homer, give some touches to Alex Collins. And even if Rashad Penny leads this backfield in touches, maybe it's thinned out so much that there's not enough left over in a tough matchup against the Los Angeles Rams. In our next game, we got the New Orleans Saints and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where y'all know last time we had this matchup. I mean, we were kind of talking about this, but I was going through trick-or-treating in Tampa, and you just saw everybody have the Bucs game on, which is kind of cool. But nonetheless, I mean, you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here going back for that revenge game where last time they lost, and this time they're going to be favored by 11 points against the New Orleans Saints, which is a pretty big deal here. I think that with this game, you're obviously starting Leonard Fournette. You're obviously starting Alvin Kamara. I don't really need to speak on this, but I'm just interested to see what Taysom Hill looks like in this matchup against Tampa. Now, our last game that we're going to talk about will be the Minnesota Vikings and the Chicago Bears, where the spread on this game is only 3.5 points. Also something I'm very not excited to watch, but I'm very interested to know why this is only 3.5 points. Now, with Chicago, I think you go through, you play David Montgomery. The workload's too large, and at the same time, with just all the uncertain situations that we have in the NFL, if you can just take a David Montgomery type player, knowing that you're going to get 80% of the snaps, you play David Montgomery. And in the case of the Minnesota Vikings, you play Dalvin Cook. There's nothing to really discuss, even if it's a tougher matchup. But of course, thank you all so much for being a part of the flock and supporting the channel. If you have not done so already, go down there, drop that like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. You entered in to win a free Fantasy Flock Network hat. And as I said, Underdog Fantasy, for the people that go and sign up and use promo code FLOCK when you make your first deposit, they'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. They're also going to be going through with that giveaway and giving away multiple trips to Tampa, Florida to go to that Florida Flock meetup. Stay in a hotel right next to my apartment. Just spend the weekend with me. It should be a ton of fun. All expenses paid trip, of course. We'll be randomly doing that. I hope y'all support the channel enough to get us to 10,000 signups. That would be badass. But yeah, thank y'all again. Really hope y'all have a great day, and I hope we get to see you out with the live stream tonight.